Your father's hand was completely limp when I moved it to forge his signature. See, I'm holding his wrist like a puppet." The video showed my brother-in-law Mark manipulating my unconscious father's hand across legal documents, unaware that nurse Patricia Rivera had been recording everything. But why did she have a detective with her? And what else had her hidden cameras captured during my father's final days? My name is Amelia Chen, and I'm standing in a crowded living room, watching my family implode. Just 20 minutes ago, we were gathering to read my father's will. Now my brother-in-law was about to be arrested for fraud, forgery, and elder abuse, all because a hospice nurse decided to become a vigilant. Let me back up 6 weeks. My father, James Chen, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in January. By March, he was in home hospice care. My older sister Diana and her husband Mark had graciously offered to move into Dad's house to help with his care. "It's the least we can do," Diana had said, tears in her eyes. "He shouldn't be alone." I lived 40 minutes away and visited daily, but I was grateful Diana could be there full-time. Dad's house, a beautiful colonial worth $2.8 million, was big enough for everyone, and he seemed comforted by having family around. Nurse Patricia Rivera started the same week Diana and Mark moved in. She was a quiet, competent woman in her 50s who handled Dad's medications and comfort care with professional grace. "Your father's a fighter," she told me one afternoon, "but you should prepare. Maybe get legal affairs in order." "Everything's already handled," I assured her. Dad updated his will last year. 50-50 split between Diana and me, just like he always promised. Patricia nodded, but seemed troubled. "In the house?" "That's often where complications arise." "Same thing. We'll sell and split the proceeds." She glanced toward the kitchen where Mark was loudly discussing renovation plans on his phone. "I see. Well, if you need anything documented about your father's condition or mental state, just ask." I didn't think much of the comment then. Dad's condition deteriorated rapidly. Within 3 weeks, he was mostly unconscious, responding only occasionally to voices or touch. Diana and I took shifts sitting with him, holding his hand, telling him we loved him. Mark, meanwhile, seemed more interested in the house than Dad's comfort. "This place could be worth $4 million with some updates," he mentioned one day, measuring the kitchen with his phone app. "New kitchen, updated bathrooms. Diana and I could really make something special here." "The house will be sold, Mark," I reminded him coldly. "That's what Dad wanted." He shrugged. "Plans change. Diana's the oldest. Dad probably wants her to have the family home. Dad wants us to split everything equally. He's been very clear." Mark's smile didn't reach his eyes. "We'll see." 2 weeks before Dad died, I arrived for my morning visit to find Mark in Dad's study, going through papers. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Just organizing," he said smoothly. "Diana asked me to get documents ready. You know, for after." Something felt wrong, but before I could investigate further, Patricia called out that Dad was awake and asking for me. Those final conversations with Dad were precious but heartbreaking. He could barely whisper, but his messages were clear. "Take care of each other. Be fair. Love you both equally." "We will, Dad," I promised. "Diana and I will follow your wishes exactly." He squeezed my hand weakly and drifted back to sleep. Dad passed peacefully on a Tuesday morning, Diana and I both holding his hands. Even Mark seemed genuinely moved, comforting Diana as she sobbed. The funeral was beautiful. Friends and family packed the church, sharing stories of Dad's kindness and generosity. For a brief moment, I thought maybe we could get through this as a family. That illusion shattered 3 days later when Diana casually mentioned, "Oh, by the way, Dad signed the house over to me before he went into the coma." I nearly dropped my coffee. "What?" "He realized it wasn't fair to make me move after taking care of him," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Mark has the paperwork." "Diana, Dad was barely conscious for weeks before he died. How could he sign anything?" It was during a lucid moment. Mark witnessed it. Red flags everywhere. I immediately called my lawyer, then Dad's lawyer. Neither had heard anything about a property transfer. Bring me whatever documents they have, Dad's lawyer, William Park, instructed. If something was signed without my knowledge while your father was incapacitated, that's a serious problem. When I confronted Diana and Mark, demanding to see the documents, Mark produced a folder with flourish. All perfectly legal, he said smugly. Property transfer deed, signed and dated 2 weeks ago. I witnessed it myself. I studied Dad's signature. It looked wrong. Shaky in places, too firm in others. This is forged, I stated flatly. How dare you? Diana gasped. Mark would never. I want a handwriting expert to examine this. Mark's face darkened. You're being ridiculous. Just because Diana gets the house. Because you forged Dad's signature while he was dying. I shot back. The argument escalated until Mark threatened to ban me from the house entirely. I left, but not before taking photos of every document. The next 2 weeks were a blur of lawyers, handwriting experts, and growing fury. The expert confirmed my suspicions. The signature showed signs of being guided or traced, inconsistent with Dad's typical signing pattern. But proving it was another matter. Without witnesses or evidence of his mental state at the time, it's your word against theirs, William explained. Mark says he witnessed a lucid moment. Hard to disprove. I was preparing for a long legal battle when Patricia Rivera called. Miss Chen, I need to speak with you urgently. Can you meet me at the house? Bring your lawyer. Why? What's wrong? I have something you need to see. I'll explain everything, but you'll want legal counsel present. We agreed to meet the next day at 2 p.m., the same time Mark had scheduled the will reading, confident his forged documents would stand. I arrived with William to find the house full of relatives, all gathered for what Mark was calling the official distribution of assets. He'd even hired his own lawyer to oversee it, clearly expecting no challenges. Patricia was already there, sitting quietly in the corner with a stern-looking man in a gray suit. Shall we begin? Mark's lawyer started, but Patricia stood up. Actually, I have something that needs to be addressed first. Mark looked annoyed. Excuse me, who are you? Patricia Rivera. I was James of Hospice Nurse. And this is Detective Robert Morrison from the Elder Abuse Division. The room went silent. Dade signed everything to me before the TOMA. Mark waved the papers desperately. I have the documents right here. Patricia raised her hand calmly. I have 4K video of you moving his unconscious hand. The detective beside her stepped forward, badge visible. Mr. Hutchinson, I'll need you to remain seated. Mark's face cycled through emotions: confusion, fear, rage. This is ridiculous. You can't record patients without consent. Actually, Patricia said, pulling out a tablet, I can, and I did. With both James's and Amelia's consent. I blinked in surprise. My consent. Patricia smiled slightly. 6 weeks ago, when I mentioned documenting your father's condition, you agreed. I had you sign a consent form for continuous monitoring for medical documentation. You probably thought I meant charts and notes. She turned the tablet toward the room. But I meant this. The video was crystal clear. Time-stamped 2 weeks before Dad's death. It showed his bedroom from an angle that captured both his bed and the side table where documents might be signed. There was my father, unconscious and still. And there was Mark, entering with papers and a pen. The audio was damning. Okay, James, Mark said to my comatose father. Time to sign some papers. Don't worry, Diana will take good care of your house. We watched in horrified silence as Mark lifted Dad's limp hand, wrapped the fingers around a pen, and physically moved the hand across the signature line. Your father's hand was completely limp when I moved it to forge his signature. See, I'm holding his wrist like a puppet. Mark's voice narrated his own crime, apparently thinking he was alone. but it got worse. The video continued as Mark practiced Dad's signature on spare papers, comparing them to an old document for reference. "Almost got it," he muttered. "Just need to make it shakier. There." Patricia paused the video. "I have 17 hours of footage showing Mr. Chen's condition during the relevant period. At no point was he conscious enough to sign anything. I also have video of Mr. Hutchinson removing original will documents from the study and replacing them with forgeries." Detective Morrison stepped forward. "Mr. Hutchinson, you're under arrest for forgery, elder abuse, fraud, and attempted grand theft. You have the right to remain silent." As they cuffed Mark, Diana finally found her voice. "I didn't know. Mark said Dad wanted. He told me Dad asked." "There's more," Patricia said quietly, starting another video. This one showed Mark and Diana in the kitchen, discussing their plans. "Once we get the house, we can take out loans against it," Mark was saying. "Your sister won't fight too hard if we throw her a bone. Maybe $500,000 to go away quietly." Diana's recorded voice responded, "But Dad wanted us to split everything. It doesn't feel right." "Your dad's not thinking clearly. We're doing him a favor, making sure the house stays in the family. Besides, after everything you've done for him, you deserve it." "I guess you're right." The detective looked at Diana. "Mrs. Hutchinson, we'll need to speak with you as well." As chaos erupted, relatives shouting, Diana crying, lawyers frantically making calls, I sat down next to Patricia. "Why?" I asked simply. "Why go to all this trouble?" Patricia's professional mask slipped, revealing deep anger. "I've been a hospice nurse for 30 years. You know how many times I've watched family members rob dying patients, forge documents, steal belongings, manipulate inheritances." She shook her head. "Usually I can't prove anything. But your father, he was aware of what was happening. During one of his lucid moments, he asked me to protect you. Said he was worried about Mark but couldn't do anything. Dad asked you to record. He consented to any and all documentation necessary to preserve his true wishes. I interpreted that liberally." She smiled grimly. "I've had cameras installed in every room I work in for the past 5 years. Families never notice. They're too focused on what they can take." William, my lawyer, was practically gleeful. "This evidence is ironclad. The forged documents are void. The original will stand. And Mark's looking at serious prison time." Over the following days, the full extent of Mark's scheme emerged. He'd forged not just the house transfer, but also documents trying to access Dad's investment accounts. He'd even attempted to change the beneficiaries on Dad's life insurance. All of it caught on Patricia's cameras. Mark was charged with 8 felony counts. Diana, after proving she was largely ignorant of the scheme's extent, received probation for conspiracy. Their marriage didn't survive the scandal. The house sold for $3.1 million. Diana and I split everything equally, just as Dad wanted. She apologized profusely, claiming Mark had manipulated her while she was grieving. Maybe that was true. Maybe not. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. But the real hero was Patricia Rivera, the quiet hospice nurse who'd appointed herself guardian of the dying. "I've got 12 active cases right now," she told me over coffee a month later. 3 of them show signs of family members planning something similar. The cameras keep running. Isn't that legally gray? Families sign comprehensive consent forms for monitoring and documentation. They assume it's medical. I never claim otherwise. She shrugged. "I've helped expose 15 cases of elder fraud in 5 years. Recovered millions in stolen assets. Sent 6 people to prison. All because you record everything. All because I listen to my patients. The dying see clearly who loves them, who's waiting for them to die, who's already stealing from them. They know. They just can't always fight back." She pulled out a business card. "I'm starting a nonprofit. Guardians for the Dying. Training nurses in documentation, providing camera equipment, working with elder abuse prosecutors. Your father's case will help us get funding. I wrote her a check for $100,000 on the spot. Mark got 7 years in federal prison for the forgery and elder abuse. The prosecutor said the video evidence was the clearest case of inheritance fraud she'd ever seen. At sentencing, Mark tried to claim Patricia had entrapped him, that the recordings were illegal, that he was manipulated by grief. The judge wasn't moved. "Mr. Hutchinson," she said sternly, "you puppeteered a dying man's hand to steal millions from his daughter. The only manipulation here was yours. The fact that someone was smart enough to document your crimes doesn't make you a victim. It makes you a caught criminal. I still have dinner with Patricia occasionally. She updates me on her cases, always anonymized, always professional. But the satisfaction in her voice when she describes catching another would-be thief is unmistakable. Your father would be proud," she told me recently. "His case has helped save dozens of other families from the same fate." I think about Dad often, especially his final lucid words asking Patricia to protect me. Even dying, even powerless, he found a way to ensure his wishes were honored. And somewhere out there, Patricia Rivera continues her vigilant watch, cameras rolling, documenting the truth for those who can no longer speak it themselves. The detective beside her had stepped forward that day, ending Mark's scheme. But the real detective was the nurse who'd been investigating all along, hidden in plain sight, protecting the vulnerable one recorded frame at a time. Justice isn't always about courts and lawyers. Sometimes it's a hospice nurse with a hidden camera and the determination to stand guard over those who can no longer stand for themselves.